Welcome back, everyone. We got a Mid Atlantic crossover edition podcast today. I am Jerry Shank, host of Crabcakes and Baseball, contributor at times to our sister program, High and Tight, down in Virginia. I am with you today, and with me today, we have a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Shooter Hunt, our director of scouting. The man, he seriously is the man, the myth, and the legend. He does it all for PBR in terms of scouting and everything, all the like. Shooter, thank you so much for being with us and give us some time in your busy day.
Yeah, you had some kind of words for me there, but it's really just you guys, all the directors and scouts and boots on the ground that lift me up. I just dance around out there with my land of rainbows and unicorns.
Well, I know you do get to mix in a little bit of time at home this time of the year, but it's soon going to be a lot different because you're going to be on the road watching player after player after player. Because, I'll call you up, hey, we got a player here in Virginia we got to see. And then California calls you up, hey, we got a player here you need to see. Hey, Connecticut. So you're all over the place. And that's a lot of what Shooter does is really getting behind that, getting behind the rankings for all across the country. So, again, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for
Today's
having me.
Oh, absolutely. Today's episode, we're going to get into rankings, especially the overall rankings. The reason we've got Shooter with us, and we're going to have a little bit of a debate. We're going to talk about both Virginia and Maryland players, obviously the Mid Atlantic, but going across our 24, 25, 26, and 27 rankings. Just get a little quick look into it. And again, we're going to have Shooter with us talking about it. So let's get into this already. All right. So before we actually talk about players, I want to have a little discussion with you on rankings. Everybody's got their opinion. We've had discussions on our podcast, Crabcakes and Baseball. I know High and Tight has done it as well, where we've tried to give a little deeper dive into the rankings and how we try to do it. Now, in overall, it takes another level, I think, just because of the you're messing with the top players across the country. And so, Shooter, what I want to really talk to you, about is really the debate between the current ability of a player and the projection. We all know if they're up in the overall rankings, they're going to throw hard, they hit the ball far, they run fast. But I want to break down these two things and kind of get your thoughts on it. So let's start with kind of current ability. Why is current ability so important?
I think when you're talking about stuff like that and our rankings process, which involves a lot, but most importantly, our boots on the ground ability to be out there and see things. When you're talking about that current, why is it important? Because you're trying to mitigate risk, right? Whether you're a college coach who wants to get guys on campus who are able to play, or a professional organization who's looking for talent to bring in, ideally every guy you got would be spectacular, right? So you want to mitigate that risk, but also amplify the value that those guys bring to your program or your organization. So having that current ability just makes it easier, right? Hey, this guy's doing good right here. He's gone against these players who are excellent. He's producing. Okay, we know that he can do this, which is what we talk about setting the floor, right? What is the lowest level he'll be able to get to? Okay, a number three starter, that's his floor. Wow, that's an exciting upside to potentially be a frontline guy. Or his floor is a closer. He's got big, powerful stuff coming out of the bullpen, but he could be a starter. We'll look at some of that stuff. A hitter, wow, his floor here, he can really handle the barrel, but he's got 40 pounds to put on. That power will come. That's all stuff that we're looking at with the projection. But in the right now, a lot of it, especially from the national level, comes down to what does your competition look like, right? So a kid in Maryland who I'm from New Jersey. Maryland was, I guess, somewhat considered down south. It's warmer down there, although it really isn't compared to a kid in Miami or South Texas or especially Southern California, where they're able to get so many at bats and get those repetitions. Well, we're not getting that in Maryland and New Jersey in the Northeast, where you're indoors, you're playing multi sports. So that's stuff to take into account with the current production level. When you're going out there in that crossover, I'm sure there's Maryland, Virginia teams that head down to Florida for their spring break. Those Florida teams are 20 games in versus a Northern Virginia kid who's going out there and maybe you had a snowstorm late and you're just getting on the field. There's so much that goes into that production level, especially when you start sifting around the country and going this guy versus that guy. But there is definitely in importance to the current production. I think actually your region, Jerry, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much here.
You're fine,
When you
man.
talk about the Mid Atlantic, and especially hitters for me, hitters hit, right? Yes, there's a projection value to that athlete. You can go out there, he's a 6'2" runner, he hits the ball so hard in BP. Well, he hit 240 in high school last year. Now, stats are not the end all be all, but guys who are good, they tend to do well. And a guy like James Triantos, who's gonna, I think he hit damn near 800 his senior year. But like those dudes produce for a reason. They
Mhm.
expect success. They go out there, believe it, and then they do it. So that current production value is definitely something we value.
Oh yeah, it's funny you brought up Triantos because I swear, in my time watching players in this region, he is at the top of the list in terms of a person who just takes over a game. You know, instantly he's the best guy there. That's what I loved about him.
It's
Um,
it, and Jerry, honestly, that's something you walk up to the field and we talk to our young scouts, and I think even more so from the youth level, like walk up the field, who hits you right in the face? Like that is the
mhm.
guy. Like don't overthink it. That's the dude. And then as they get older, like how many guys walk around spring training that look like that? Not many. Well, let's start there because that's a lot of value because we can't find anybody else like that.
Right. No, absolutely. All right. So now let's move to the next one. It's funny. You talked about floor and ceiling. Now let's go to the ceiling, the projection factor. A lot of it is the crystal ball. It's the hardest job. That's why people get paid the big bucks and that's why people get fired. So it's one of the tougher things, but it plays an important factor, especially in rankings too, because we're trying to gauge where these guys are. What I just want to throw it over to you, let you have a little second to breathe a bit before I keep on peppering you with questions. Why is it so important?
Well, I think a lot of what we talk internally about is what is the upside of this player and what is the likelihood that he reaches that upside. Now, a lot of factors go into what is the likelihood that gets there. And what I love about what we do at Prep Baseball is because we're so hyper local, we have a feel for a guy like a James Triantos who goes out there, he takes over the game, he wins. And you and I especially, we battle a lot about players and talking about them, and I'm asking you for as much info as I can get. Is that guy a winner? Is he the dude? Does he expect success? Those are things that will help him reach that ceiling when he goes out there. Is he a hard worker? All that background that go beyond just the metrics and the athleticism. What is that aggressiveness type for that guy? And I'm going to stick to your region with some guys because when we talk about them internally, we have our meetings, our scouting meetings. But a guy like James Wood, right? Like the ceiling was set so high because he has some unteachable characteristics, the bat speed, the power potential. Now, the production, even at the high school level early on, there was swing and miss. I would say
Mhm.
even into his senior year, there was swing and miss at the plate. Now he's one of the top prospects in baseball. I think he'll probably be in the bigs this year. When you have a guy that has that chance to be that special, from a professional aspect, that's what a lot of teams are paying for early, right? We want to hit that high level. The fourth outfielder, the middle reliever, we can buy that or just kind of develop that on its own. That guy who has a chance to be special that we can get in the draft and we can get that huge upside. I think a lot of teams value something like that because, especially in baseball where you don't have a salary cap, you have to be able to gather that talent through the draft versus if you don't have the type of money as some of the other teams getting in free agency. So just that ceiling, and there's so much that goes into it. We'll get to the younger classes, but we have that relative age theory. So just how old is this kid going against his peers? How much time does he have to develop into the future? Where is he from? From a national standpoint, our evaluations on different regions of the country are different because that player develops at a different pace. The kid coming out of New England versus a kid in South Texas, the amount of at bats and reps are just not the same. It doesn't mean that they don't have the same athleticism or potentially the same ceiling. It's just the fact that they just can't get those at bats. So that's something we have to look at, which again, we have these hyper local scouts who understand their region. This is what this top player looks like in Maryland. This is why Jackson Merrill is going to be so good. This is what we can count on here. So that's all stuff with the projection. Obviously, you need those tools. and bring in blast motion and TrackMan data, and even the Swift stuff gives us a chance. Again, we're trying to mitigate that risk. Hey, this guy has something that is unteachable, and a lot of the things of what does he do that we can't develop. That's what every farm system's looking for. That's what college programs are looking for, right? Hey, we want to add this. Well, velocity, that's one of the easier things to add. Honestly, for a kid in high school, if you just eat well, you'll probably throw harder. I don't want to simplify it too much, Jerry, but
Yeah.
like I think Cressy says it the best. Like puberty is the best velo program there is. So you just go through that level, and different kids are at different levels or different phases of going through puberty and getting stronger. And just looking through those athletic frames and trying to find who's the guy that has a chance to jump the most.
No, absolutely, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. And I know I tried. I gave you two pretty broad points, and I thought you really did a great job of keeping it tight and letting people know. That's some great information. So hopefully y'all got a lot out of that because I know I did. Now, between the two, like if you're just taking kind of that current ability, and I kind of think I know what the answer is going to be, but I want to ask you anyways. You're taking that current ability against the projection. What means more for you and why?
I think early on, like for us, early on in your high school days, right? That production. Hey, this kid's a freshman, dominating or doing really well at the varsity level. Like, okay, we're going to take that into account just because he's getting those reps earlier on. The projection wise, I keep coming back to that mitigation of risk. Right? Why are so many hitters coming from the South? Well, because they have so many at bats, they have those reps, they have those 10,000 reps against elite talent where it's hard for a northern hitter to catch up. Now, if you rest on your laurels and you're not getting the right reps, you give away the gift of being ahead down south and allow those guys to catch up in a hurry, a la Jackson Merrill, who goes into a system, and the Padres did a great job drafting him, and his buzz late into that spring and jumping into the first round, they've paid dividends for them because you give a kid like that 1,000 at bats, and all of a sudden he's catching up in a hurry.
Oh yeah.
But the projection, I think there's a time, I'm sure all of us are guilty of it. Like you think you can turn anything into something better, right? And it just doesn't always work. So that projection, I think it's not just the physical tools, but the mental capacity, the ability to go out in a game of failure and wake up and know that, hey, today might not be my day, but I still need to put in my work. Still need to believe and see that dream, even when we're in our darkest days. That's something that you have to look for, even when going out to an event and just watching 10 to 20 swings and a 60 and a couple of ground balls.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's well said. And moving into my last question for you in this rankings debate, and I know you've already talked about it some, Shooter, but really the value of I guess this is kind of a plug too, a self pat on the back here, but the value of having all these state directors and scouts to be able to help you and point you in the right direction. I mean, how valuable is that?
I mean, I've told all of our guys internally before, right? A lot of times, I get this to stand at the front of this national stuff, but nobody in baseball can make one phone call and know anything about the amateur baseball space. Because of all of our state directors and scouts on the ground, we know everything that's going on in amateur baseball space with a single phone call. And there's no professional organization, college organization that can do something like that. And we pride ourselves on being out there. And that's what I think is the most important thing. Just outwork, be there, see as much as you can. That's how you become a better scout. See as much as you can. You can pin this versus that. But I really lean on everything that our scouts do just because they know what's going on in that area, and can really evaluate this guy versus that guy in my backyard. This is who it is versus this single swing on Twitter or this pull down or this off season, whatever.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for going over that and talking about some things that go into the rankings, because I like to remind our listeners and everybody around that it's just a lot more than just grabbing a name and throwing it up on a list. We
And Jared,
really
just
take
to hop in too, like it's a lot of the rank. It's not always a one versus one here. A lot is a grouping, right? And when you're looking at a draft board, like, hey, this group of guys, um, I think at the top you start looking at like, hey, this guy. I go back to 2019. Bobby Witt Jr. set the pace. Like that guy in high school was different than everybody else. A lot of the times it's a group of hey, these 10 outfielders are all really good, and maybe they're a little bit more difference in number on our ranking scale, but most of the time it's usually a grouping and it's not as far apart as you think.
No, for sure. And you see that too between high school and college. And a perfect example, I was just talking to you the other day about him, Brendan Clark. He's a
Hmm.
Northern Virginia arm. He was at our Super 60, really showed well, but you could tell there was some things there that needed to get cleaned up. Now he's in junior college. It struggled a little bit that first year, got in junior college, and now all of a sudden he's throwing, upper 90s, close to 100 miles an hour. Now we're back on board because he's made that jump. He's caught some of that projection. He's getting closer to the ceiling, and he's a top prospect.
Of
Just
course.
kind of going along with what you're saying.
Electric stuff. It's
Yeah,
that upside high, that ceiling versus floor. So
absolutely, absolutely. All right, so now let's get into the rankings. Enough of that. Good debate. Thank you again. So overall rankings, we're going to go down by class. We're just going to talk a little bit by some of the players in both of our regions. Let's start with the 2024 class. Our upcoming draft class. Good class in the state of Virginia. We got about 13 players in there. Griffin Burkholder leads the way. You got Dalton Wentz, Aiden Harris, Austin Irby, James Nunnally, Brendan Cowan, Caden Succi, Callum Early, Lee Sowers, Brad Zayak, Alex Peltier, Adam Troke, and Jackson Soroy, to name all of them. Really good parity for the state. It's a nice class. I think it's been getting stronger as we've moved on. But the one thing I did want to talk, we had one Virginia 2024 in this group who was at the All American game. We would have had two. Unfortunately, Dalton Wentz had a late injury, had to miss it. Hoping that recovery is going well and everything. But Griffin Burkholder really he turned some eyes there. Had a pretty good workout day. But I wanted to get it to you. You were there. You got to see everything. Let me know your thoughts on how that went.
it was impressive to watch the athleticism. He's built like a strong safety, wide receiver, whatever you might want to say. He's a 6'3", 6'4" runner, or is he faster than that? Sorry, Jerry.
No, that's all right. I think he was a 6'2"
Was he 6'2", 9"?
at the
Jeez, I'm
All
sorry,
American
Griff.
game. Yeah.
And
No, that's all right. It was impressive. It was impressive.
but all the metrics, even the blast motion stuff, the way the ball jumps off the bat, and hitter wise, it's really for me impact and acceleration. How hard can you hit the baseball? How quickly can you get out the box, the top speed? And that's something that he brings to the table as a potential true center fielder. Right-handed hitter, it's if he was a left-handed hitter, it might have more value right now, but the ability to hit for power, I think, will be there in the end. It's a simple stroke. It, not super loose with the hands and wrists, but it's direct to the baseball. He can spray the field. He did well at the right time. Had a big East Coast Pro showing, which is huge. I mean, it's amazing in baseball how important, like especially from the draft side of things, like doing well at the right time, and you can really raise your stock there. He did a great job. We're going to have to see him at the Super 60, kind of kick off the draft season in Chicago in February for us. But just being around him, the way he handles himself, he's buttoned up, really would stand well in front of a camera, and will interview well with GMs or scouting directors. He'll do a great job with that. But shoot, 6'2" runner who can hit over 100-mile-an-hour exit velocities. That's kind of what baseball's looking for.
No, for sure, for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun to follow him this spring. I know we're really excited because, like you're saying, he's really shot up
Mm-hmm.
in the past 12 months. Always been a really good player, but I really feel like this summer was really strong for him. The spring and summer has really upped his game.
Yes.
Um, so let's stick with Virginia. A guy in this class that you're kind of excited to see. You think maybe will make a jump this spring. Is there anybody on here that you're wanting to keep eyes on?
I think Jimmy Nunnally is a guy that I loved last summer. Kind of the first time I get to lay eyes. Just a loose flick from the left side at the plate. I'm a big fan of the UVA recruiting class. I've spoken ad nauseum about it. But I think Nunnally's a sleeper with that. can really spray the field. I think he has a chance to be one of those sleepers in your area, which seems right now to be a yearly tradition of who's the guy in the Mid Atlantic. I talk with you a lot about that.
Right.
I'm excited to see Brendan Cowan, a guy who's going to come to our Super 60, left-handed arm. And we talk a lot. I think kind of circling back to the rankings talk with velocity. Yes, velocity plays a part, but with that projection, I as a pitching guy myself, like velocity is easier to get, right? It's what does Brendan Cowan that have that's not unteachable? He throws left-handed.
Right.
He's 6'4". Everything works easy. He's a great mover down the mound. Will that velocity come? Yeah, I mean, a couple
Mhm.
band pull aparts. He does his J bands for another year. All of a sudden, he's throwing harder. So it's not something that's too important, which is why I love his upside. You think back, there's a Connecticut first rounder, Frank Mazzucato, who's not a guy who threw very hard throughout his high school career, and then all of a sudden it popped a little bit as he made his way into the top 10 picks with the Royals. He's off to a great start. But those are kind of two less known. I mean, Austin Irby can really hit, and that's probably the toughest thing to find. And you can develop the bat speed, you can develop that strength, but the decision making ability and the pitch recognition is something that's really difficult to teach and develop. Austin Irby does a great job of hitting, so
Yeah.
he's a really good one to follow. But this is really is a fun class. Like even a guy like Brad Zayak, who's got a great arm.
Mhm.
That's a guy who, if you told me in four years he's just in Double A, just cruising and not walking anybody, getting some punchies, like I would completely understand that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's really been impressive over the years how Virginia, especially, obviously I pay attention more to Virginia, pay
Mm.
attention more to Maryland, but you watch these guys, maybe they don't get drafted out of high school, but then you see all of a sudden 3 years, 4 years later, 2 years later, they're in the draft, they've moved up, they've made those jumps we were hoping would happen, and it just really shows the depth of it.
What's and to pat you on the back with this one, one of the guys, and we go through our rankings calls, and not just the skill, but there's always the intangibles. And I was looking at your 2019 Future Games team, which had Jackson Merrill, James Wood, all these seven-figure guys, and there's Griff O'Farrell. And I remember all of our conversations about Griffin O'Farrell, and the you perpetually tell me, get this guy in the national. He is going to go to Charlottesville and he's going to start at shortstop from day one and he's going to be their favorite player. And now Griffin Farrell is kind of a dark horse first round type right now. So kudos to you on that, but tying in that projection a little bit with the intangibles.
Yeah, yeah. You say that. I talked about Triantos being one of my favorite players. Griff's right there beside him. Gosh, it's so much fun to watch him. Never forget the first time I saw him as a freshman. I was like, this kid's going to be special, and he truly has been. So let's move on to Maryland in the 2024 class. Not a ton of depth in there. We've got two guys from Maryland in our overall rankings. I think that does. I think instead of saying more for Maryland, it speaks more for the talent across the country. It's a very deep class. There's a lot of good players who are just chomping at the bit right there in that Maryland Delaware area that we had a lot of debates about. Are they in? Are they out? And that's probably one of the toughest parts right there is getting everybody into a top 500 because you could probably put 1,000 people in there. But Jake Yeager out of Archbishop Spalding, right-handed pitcher, and McClellan Stifler out of North Hagerstown, big, tall, long righty. Those are our two players in from Maryland, Delaware area in the 2024 overall. Now I've got those two for you, Shooter. Which one are you more excited about for this spring, or is it both?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going to make a choice on that because I'm excited to see Max Stifler, the Super 60. Jaeger was probably one of the more buzzier names
Yes.
for me that came across my desk throughout the summer. And just the way he moves, ball hops out. I mean, professional baseball. Are you getting whiffs in the zone? Can you challenge in hitters counts? They know what's coming, you know what's coming, and still get those swings and misses. I think he may have the chance to do that. Stifler's interesting just because the upside's there. We've followed him for 3+ years now. Future gamer, has all the makings of a big time guy. West Virginia's done a great job developing players just like him. He's another one where we talk about the ceiling. Hey, you can't teach the frame he has, the arm strength, the stuff that he has. If you're talking about Max Stifler being a first rounder out of West Virginia, hey, that can happen. He moves really well. It comes out of the hand. They develop it. He gets his work in. that can definitely happen. But both of them are really good ones there, and they probably would go head to head with any of your Virginia pitchers.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Both really athletic too.
Yes.
It's going to be fun to watch Jaeger, especially this year. That Spalding has been such a talented team the past few years. Parker Thomas last year was kind of the quote unquote ace of the staff. Now you're going to see Jake take over that big dog role. So it should be a lot of fun watching him. Really see how he responds to that. And then Stifler, like you're saying, man, I remember watching him take BP. I mean, he's hitting triple digits exit velo, and he's just like he don't know what he's doing. He's just out there whiffing at it and going after it. So a lot of fun to watch them both because really good athletes, really good players. So let's continue on. Let's go to the 2025 class. Now Virginia, it's a pretty good group of players here. Um, you got Evan Hankins, Miles Upchurch, Noah Yoder, just kind of spitting out the top three. Donovan Jeffrey, Austin Dean's in there, Clayton Arma, Luke Smyers, and the list goes on and on and on. You can check our rankings, overall rankings. Go to prepbaseballreport.com. Rankings are right there. You'll be able to see everybody. You can sort them by number. You can sort them by state, however you want to do it. But I want to continue on here, Shooter, with you. It's a really good class. I know I didn't say all of them, and I just wanted to keep this moving. Again, let's go back to the All American game. Evan Hankins was there. Um, I've become a huge fan of Evan. I really, really like his game, and the more I get to know him, the more I like him. That's a little segue to you. You got to experience him. You got to watch him play. What was your overall thoughts after All American game?
I think that's spot on. I think his personality and makeup actually push his skill level even higher. He kind of looks like Ryan Zimmerman, has the same temperament, but it's a relaxed intensity. And what I loved, he goes into the home run derby, and for a guy who's just even keel, it's not too high, not too low. The intensity that he brought to batting practice and workouts, he was looking to get after it. I love that he can hop on the mound. I do think that there's a chance he really develops into a big time arm. 3 pitches for strikes, throws them at any count. But what guys are going to like, and pro scouts next summer and the guys who have been around him will just love the makeup. You talk with him, he gets it. The moment's not too big for him. He's able to slow things down, whether it's at the plate or on the bump, throw strikes. I can't say enough good things about him. He's also 6'4", 6'5", square shouldered, athletic. So that makes it easy too. He did a great job of the All American game. Obviously, has the big power at the plate from the left side, which is great, but also really moves well on the mound. He's kind of got that low release height, high slot, which can be deceptive, and we'll see if he's able to make that jump either to the pro side or even just heading to Tennessee and playing in the SEC.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a good situation to be in. Lot He transferred schools this year. He's at Miller School, so that'll be
Mhm.
a lot of fun to watch him. Different level. I think he's going to see um, a lot more competition on a consistent basis. I should say, not saying anything a bit, but just Battle is a 2A school, smaller school. Now he's playing in private, so it should be a lot of fun to watch him there.
He won't be
All right.
scared.
No, not at all. Not at all. Um, Again, with the Virginia class, let's talk about another player here that, somebody who really catches your eye.
I mean, Miles Upchurch was a guy who crushed it for me late in the summer. And he's got some unteachableness, the big physical frame. It's a durable workhorse looker on the mound. But the fastball jumps out of the hand. I mean, by the time it's his spring seniors or his senior spring, it's going to be pretty easy mid 90s.
Yeah.
3 pitches, the more everything comes together, it has that upside. You're looking at a guy that the delivery moves well for his size. Um, it's a starter profile. Don't overthink it. This guy's good.
Yeah.
So that's one we're definitely looking at. I think Yoder's a really good player. Ball hops out of the hand. He's another one. I mean, this whole class. I'm even looking like Beasley was a guy that I think I turned you on to early on his freshman year
Yeah.
before he came to
Yep.
the future games.
Yeah.
But he's a really good athlete, and I think I'm becoming biased in the Mid Atlantic, where it's like you just expect somebody to elevate themselves into first round status. So it's kind of like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Because you've kind of built that reputation at this point.
They really have, and there's some really intriguing players who are kind of in the lower half of the rankings right now who can make that jump. I mean,
Hmm.
a super super projectable player, like a Jet Bristow, and then
Well,
you've got
especially Jet Bristow, right?
yeah,
Because
oh, yeah,
I mean, it is just dumb exit velocities. He puts on a show at the future games. Ball jumps off the bat. Everything's going his way. If he just grabs a hold of that, gains that confidence, goes out each day believing that he is the best player in the field, he has the type of innate athleticism and electricity to just elevate his game even higher. So like that's a perfect example of a guy internally for us where we're looking at those advanced metrics and what is this guy putting out? What is the explosiveness of this athlete? Hey, we got to follow this. Circle him.
yep, yeah. You could throw Clayton Arma, I think, into that category as well.
Hmm.
Another one who was at our junior future games, and he just continues to get better and better, and had a really strong year last year. I know talking with his coaches there, they're really on board. They love everything about it, and there's a ton to dream on when you watch them on the bump. So
For sure.
it's a really fun class in the state of Virginia. Let's move over to Maryland. It's a deeper class here. Some really intriguing players. You got Aiden West, Joe Nottingham, Sam Rozan, Corey Sheridan, Austin Weiss, Nathan Wines, and Andrew Duncan. Um, it's a really, really intriguing class here. I know you could talk about everybody. Is there one in particular who kind of jumps out to you?
I think Joe Nottingham, just because he's 6'5", 6'6", he's already thrown into the low to mid 90s. The arm stroke's not super clean. It's a little more segmented. So that's something that scouting wise, is he going to be able to repeat it? He has sprayed the zone a little bit, but again, there's some unteachableness about that. So he's definitely got to follow there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, he's a Georgia commit, just happened recently, not too long ago. So real interesting. I've always been a fan of Aiden West. I know we debate back and forth at the end of the day, what the position is going to be. Um, but, he's another kid. He gets it done. He gets it done for me. Just a really, really good class, a lot to like. And there's some sleepers in there too. Like Austin Weiss is just somebody that's a name for people to remember. He just
Hmm.
continues to get better and better and better. And I'll talk about everyone if we if we have a minute. But no, it's a solid class in 2025. It's really shaped up like we were hoping it would when they were freshmen coming in, because we thought it was going to be a really good class. So let's move on to the 2026 class. And again, um, I'm just going to throw one name at you because I know you've been a fan of him for a long time, and I'd like to give you a minute, just to talk about him. But that's one, Jason Kruchek out of Bishop O'Connell. He was at our preseason All State last year, and I just remember literally, I mean, it was probably like an hour after the event, 2 hours after the event. You shoot myself, you shoot Jason Burton a text, and you're like, "Who is this?" And go take it from there.
It's and I mean those are the thing I'm you know that's what I'm watching, right? It's nonstop. Want to be the most knowledgeable guy in the industry at all times, so it doesn't stop. When you see an arm move like that, just how athletic it is, loose, whippy, jumps out of the hand, looks like a shortstop on the mound. It's coming out, but that low slot has that outlier look to it. It's low slot with that ride. That's something that I think most people are looking for right now. And me especially, like he was able to get swings and misses. I think he's going to throw real hard, and he's got feel for spin. The mound presence was there, but there was just so much to dream on. Where you're like, I would love to coach that. You'll make me look good because I mean, in spite of my stupid coaching, you'll get better.
And then another player, and I think I didn't look at. I should have looked at it before we got on here. But one of the players in our 2026 ranks, I think he's the highest ranked in terms of overall, in terms of number, and that's Daniel Nienaber, out of Glen Allen, I believe. I should have looked at that again too. But Richmond area, dominant arm, just super super impressive. We've got him up there high. You know, I just want to pass along like this has the makings to be just a real special arm, special
Is it
player.
knee neighbor? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, knee neighbor.
I need to make sure of that because I'm gonna have to say it a lot the next 2 years. Um, it just kept getting more special.
Yeah.
And the first time you look at it, wow, this guy moves differently than guys in this class. And I get to watch more of the class than probably anybody throughout across the country. This is different. and he came to the
Yeah.
event. Then he comes out to your pro case where Brandon Hall from down in North Carolina, who's seen all those big time North Carolina guys, he walks away blown away. That was the best dude. Who is that guy? He's spinning the baseball with ease, change up, 3 pitches for a strike. He's in the low 90s. Another guy that low slot, high height, high release height, or the low high. I'm getting mixed up here. But starter profile, and I think we're just getting started. This next spring will tell a lot, and then into the summer, where that's the type of guy who could just break out to a different level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know we are all big fans of him, especially. I'm going to throw a name out there too, who's just quietly starting to rise. He's had a really good past, honestly, like 6 months, and that's Lawson McLeod. Um, Really, really long, lanky. He looks like he weighs about 12 pounds because it's just like skin and bones. But the arms, it's always worked. It's starting to work even more. The velo's jumping up. He's at Trinity Episcopal. They've got a really interesting team there this year, so it should be a lot of fun. But another guy who, I say he's going to be rising. He's like 128 right now in our overalls because really we wanted to see how he does this spring
Mhm.
before we really say, hey, this has got to be the next big thing. But I think he's somebody who's really intriguing. This has got the makings to be a pretty impressive class in the state of Virginia.
I'm getting blasted by the sun right here, so I'm sorry about that. But like McLeod's a type where, and I put this out in an article recently, but like that's a circle must watch this spring college coach. Like, yeah, you can't talk to the kid yet, but you're going to be at outings because
Yeah,
that's how good that guy has a chance to be. And I think you said like there's still so much projection. He's 6'5", I think 200, 205. When
yeah,
you just look at on the stat sheet, you're like, oh, this must be a physically developed kid. And then you watch the actual video, you see him in person, you're like, hey, there's like 20 more pounds at least that this guy's going to
easy.
add. He's already moving well. When you have a
Yeah,
kid that is that young and is that long, but already understands the movement patterns and how to repeat that arm slot, that's very rare. It's special in any kid. You're going through an awkward phase in your life, and you're still able to find it with 3 pitches, can spin it. I mean, if you told me he was a senior, we'd be talking about like, yeah, that's a great ad for that school. He's going to do well in college next year, or be going through the professional ranks. But as a 2026 and a sophomore, I mean, you're talking about ACC, SEC. You need to get out to see those this spring. He's a guy I circled to see.
yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, now to Maryland, two players in there, and two. Honestly, these are two guys that I'm really excited about. I really like what I think these two players are going to become. You've got Eli Livingston and Osiah Kelly. Kelly's at Sussex Central in Delaware. Eli is at St. Paul's in Maryland. I've always been high on Eli. You know this. I tell you this all the time. Osiah's another one. Um, is there any one in particular you want to talk about? Both? I mean, the
Let
floor is
me
yours.
just because Eli, it was another one that you and Jamie probably got a text from me early on about just like who is this kid because that swing's different,
Yeah.
and even from an
And
early
it
age,
was
let's
actually sorry, it was
with
junior future games when he just
okay.
started. I forget, we played Tennessee and there was a big arm there who's a young kid who's like 86, 87. And then they brought in a lefty who was like 85, 87. And after the game, because Eli, he barreled him up, both at bats, barreled him up, just acted like he'd been there before. And you're like, who is this guy?
It's different, and again, it ties back into the region, the reputation, right, for the DMV right now. It's just like, hey, dudes are coming out of here. If you like the way this looks, it's probably pretty good. So
Yeah.
he's a guy to bet on. And again, that hit ability, the bat the ball, the decision making, that's ultra impressive stuff. But it really is a strong class, and like just peering behind the curtain here, a guy like Miguel Leon, who we have tons of conversations with because you love him nonstop. You go to bat for him at all times, and he's the type of guy where the more you see, he's a right infielder. I could see him just bursting into the national rankings in short time and really making an impact next summer too. Even though Coach Swope got in there before the rule went into effect.
Oh yeah, no, they did a great
Protect those
job there
state
with
lines at all costs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Leone, he's done a great job too. His projection path, his path as a player has just really increased. He's worked his butt
Hmm.
off. It's been great to see. And then Osai Kelly, I know it's going to be exciting to watch him because a true two-way talent on the bump, the arms loosey
I
goosey. It
love the
works.
way the arm works. I think the more we've talked about it internally, it's just like this dude's gonna be throwing hard.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be just an arm when I first saw him. And then when I went and watched him this past spring, first time I really got to lay eyes on him in the middle infield. The athleticism is it's very, very high. And I was like, wow, I'm not sure yet. Maybe he ends up doing both, but it's really impressive. A lot of fun. Definitely somebody that we're going to watch as well because it's going to be a lot of fun this year. So that moves us to the 2027s. Um, and really, shooter, this is where having the scouts in place it plays a huge role. I know we're this is the last thing we'll talk about here, but having the scouts in place plays a really huge role in this class because this is the first time really you're getting introduced to it. We've just got a small scale size. I believe we've got about 8 players from the Mid Atlantic region who are in the rankings. There's some really, really interesting talents in there. Um, you know, what exactly, what did you learn about our guys in the Mid Atlantic when you were watching it? Is there any player you maybe would want to talk about? But really, when we're relaying that to you, what do you learn from us? What do you learn about that class?
Trying to dig in. I think this class we put more time into than any other because it's just so new, and um, we know that more players are going to come on the scene. That's why we're not putting out a list of 500, right? Hey, we
Right.
know over time, and even the kids that are in this, we went to 300. Um, in time there's going to be 200 other players that come in, so like a drop in the ranking may just, it's not that you are falling, it's just that other guys were seen and are have elevated to a different level. But again, going through it, and actually I feel like you guys have like 7 kids committed to Virginia Tech. Tech
Yeah,
got
yeah.
after it.
The Hokies did get after it before the new
um,
rules were in place. Yeah, four. We've got 5 guys from Virginia. 4 of the 5 are Virginia Tech commits.
so
Yeah,
I mean that just shows you how valuable it is in the state. Hey, we can't like, these guys are going to be good. And you identify that talent early, right? That the
mhm.
athleticism, the way they move, athletic, the aptitude, the aggressiveness, everything that's going on the field that they can go out there and show from an early age. And a lot of time with these guys, they're so young. Who is the dude? Who's the guy, again, going back to what we talked about at the top of the show, who expects success? Like, who's the guy, the 2-3 hole, plays up the middle, swings the bat well, not just the strongest guy who's just using his brute strength to do things, but the movement patterns work, which is why, honestly, the TrackMan data, the blast motion data, the Swift data, whatever we have out there really helps at the youth levels the most for the college coaches. That's why they're diving into these data sets across the country, identifying those outlier talents that other people may be overlooking, but especially the youth level, that's something that's important. But along those same lines, so is age. And going through these national rankings, and honestly, us in America, we're probably like the one country that has like 27, 28 month discrepancies in age, especially in this class. I don't know if COVID did it, but we do take that into account. And it's something that every pro team is taken into account. Like, where is this guy age wise? Because developmentally, if you are a 16-and-a-half-year-old freshman going up against a 14-and-a-half-year-old, well, just the physicality difference in that is something that we have to be cognizant of. And we are when going through this stuff. The college coaches, for the most part, are. The professional organizations most definitely are. But it's something that's become paramount and important. And I think it's why you're seeing a lot of front end draft talent reclass, especially this 24 class. I think we've had 5 or 6. There'll be potentially a couple of first rounders who classed up from 25 to 24. You will almost definitely see it in the 27 class, having gone through and seen the ages of a lot of these guys. But I think, just so your guys know, in the DMV area, it's something we take into account when going through this.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're talking about that competitiveness, and it's definitely present with some of those Virginia guys, Tegan Leach,
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Knox in there, the Colangelo cousins, Yogi and Chase. Like They are extremely high motor kids who are really, really competitive. It's fun to see at that age too. So
And
be fun to
I
watch
actually
them.
even with my own kids, it's easier to calm them down than to juice them up. So it's always nice to see a kid who likes to get after it on the field.
For sure, for sure. And then interesting too, just a little nugget there. Maryland's two players in our current rankings right now are actually teammates at the same school, McDonough, um, Jack Ortiz and
Where's
Anderson
McDonough at?
Cannon. McDonough's just outside of Baltimore. Now that I say that, I'm going to confuse myself because there's two McDonoughs. One's a private school, one's a public. Beautiful campus though. They're really known for football.
Okay,
But
that's where I've heard him.
yeah, no, they're more known for football. They're in the B conference for the MIAA, which is the best conference, or I shouldn't say the best, but one of the best
Uh
conferences in
oh.
Maryland. There's an A conference and B conference. They're in the B conference, but two real interesting young talents to definitely that we're definitely going to be watching this spring. We're excited to see, but yeah. So Shooter, thank you a ton for being on here. I know I kept you a little bit longer than I promised I would,
Oh, it's
but
fun.
we got to talk a little baseball, talk a little DMV, and we need that. We need more of that from you, especially, so we
Oh
can
man.
get get these guys on your mind.
Yeah, tell
You know,
Jamie and
and
Burton that I filled my quota for the year. I'm gonna have to take a couple months off from the DMV now, so people don't
yeah,
think I'm biased.
yeah, and you're always welcome to come watch any event. I'm just going to put you on the spot as we're doing this podcast to come down and watch because we got some good events coming up this summer. Well, this winter, this summer, this next fall. So don't be a stranger, man. I know the players would love to see the shooter hunt in person.
Uh-oh. I won't make any promises, but I should be on the East Coast pretty soon.
Well, that sounds good. So, for Shooter Hunt, I am Jerry Shank. This was the Mid Atlantic crossover. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for your continued support. We'll talk to you next time, guys. Thank you.